When my sister Vivian looked me dead in the eye and said, "You are not family, move," I thought I misheard her. But as she physically pushed me away from my grandmother's funeral dinner table, claiming my seat beside our father, the entire room fell silent. 23 years of believing I belonged to the Morrison family crumbled in that moment. What I discovered next would destroy everything I thought I knew about blood loyalty and the people who raised me. Before we dive into this family nightmare, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. If this story hits close to home, smash that like button and subscribe, because family betrayal stories like mine need to be heard. Trust me, what happens next will leave you questioning everything about family loyalty. The funeral reception continued around us, but I felt like I was drowning in a room full of strangers who suddenly looked at me differently. Aunt Margaret, my father's sister, guided me to the kitchen, where she sat me down with shaking hands. "Aurelia, honey, there are things you need to know," she whispered, glancing toward the dining room where Vivian now sat in my chair, accepting condolences as the devoted daughter. "Your grandmother left specific instructions about her will. She wanted you to know the truth before the reading tomorrow." My hands trembled as I held the teacup she offered. "What truth? What are you talking about?" Margaret pulled out a manila envelope yellowed with age. "Your grandmother kept these documents for over 2 decades. She made me promise to give them to you if anything happened to her before she found the courage to tell you herself." Inside were adoption papers dated 3 days after my birth, hospital records showing I was born to a teenage mother who had overdosed when I was 6 months old, and most shocking of all, documentation proving that my father had been systematically stealing from a trust fund my biological grandmother had established for me before her death. "Marcus has been taking money meant for you since you were 7 years old," Margaret said, her voice breaking. "Over $250,000, Aurelia. Your biological grandmother wanted you to have financial security when you turned 25. Instead, Marcus used it to pay for Vivian's private school, her college tuition, her wedding, even the down payment on her house." The room spun around me. Every family vacation I had been excluded from, every time Vivian got something expensive while I was told we could not afford it, every moment I felt like an outsider in my own home, suddenly made perfect sense. Why did they adopt me if they never wanted me? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Margaret's face hardened. "The monthly Social Security checks from your biological father's military death benefits. They stopped when you turned 18, didn't they? Funny how your college fund mysteriously disappeared right around the same time." I remembered. The college fund they claimed had been invested poorly. The student loans I had to take out while Vivian's education was paid in full. The guilt I carried for being a financial burden on the family. "There's more," Margaret continued, pulling out bank statements. "Marcus has been telling family members for years that you are ungrateful and entitled, that you expect handouts. Meanwhile, he has been using your trust fund money to make himself look generous. Every family Christmas gift labeled 'from Dad', every family dinner he paid for, every vacation he funded for other relatives, all of it came from money that legally belonged to you." The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. Not only had my father stolen from me, but he had used my own money to turn family members against me, painting himself as generous while portraying me as the ungrateful adopted daughter who never appreciated their sacrifices. "The worst part," Margaret said, her voice dropping to a whisper, "is that your biological grandmother left specific instructions. She wanted you to know about your real parents when you turned 18. Marcus hid those documents too. Your biological father was a decorated war veteran, and your mother was a talented artist who struggled with addiction after losing him. They were not the drug addicts Marcus told everyone they were." I sat in stunned silence, processing 23 years of lies. Every time Marcus had disciplined me for being just like your real parents, every warning about my bad genes, every suggestion that I should be grateful because no one else would want me, It had all been manipulation designed to keep me compliant while he robbed me blind. What about Mom? Patricia, did she know? Margaret's hesitation told me everything. Patricia knew about the money, but she convinced herself it was for the good of the family. She thought if they treated you and Vivian equally, it would balance out somehow. But Vivian was never treated equally, was she? She was always the princess. The pieces of my childhood fell into place like a horrible puzzle. Patricia's guilty looks when she bought Vivian expensive clothes, but told me we needed to shop at thrift stores. The family photos displayed prominently throughout the house that somehow featured Vivian in every single one, while I appeared in maybe 3 relegated to the back of the group. The way visitors were introduced to their daughter Vivian, while I was simply Aurelia. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because your grandmother's will is being read tomorrow, and Marcus is planning to contest it. She left you everything, Aurelia. The house, her savings, her jewelry collection, everything. She knew what Marcus had done, and this was her way of trying to make it right. But he is going to claim you are not really family, that as an adopted child, you have no legal right to inherit from his mother. The irony was not lost on me. For 23 years, I was family when it benefited them financially through my trust fund and Social Security benefits. Now that I stood to inherit something legitimately mine, suddenly I was not family at all. The law office felt like a battlefield the next morning. Marcus sat smugly beside Vivian and Patricia, having clearly briefed them on his strategy. Their lawyer, a sharp-suited man with cold eyes, had several documents spread across the table. On my side sat Margaret, and surprisingly my grandmother's longtime housekeeper, Rosa, who had requested to attend as a witness. Attorney Williams, who had served as my grandmother's lawyer for over 30 years, cleared his throat and began reading. I, Eleanor Morrison, being of sound mind and body, do hereby leave my entire estate to my granddaughter, Aurelia Morrison, who has shown me more love and kindness in her 23 years than my own son has shown in 52. Marcus jumped to his feet immediately. This is outrageous. She was manipulated. My mother was clearly not of sound mind when she wrote this. Aurelia is not even blood family. Mr. Morrison, Attorney Williams said calmly, your mother anticipated this response. That is why she asked me to include this additional statement. He pulled out a separate document. Marcus, if you are hearing this, it means you are attempting to steal from Aurelia, just as you have been stealing from her since she was 7 years old. Yes, I know about the trust fund. I know about every check you forged, every withdrawal you made, every lie you told. I have documentation of everything. The room went deadly silent. Marcus's face drained of color. Attorney Williams continued reading. I also know that you told family members Aurelia was ungrateful and demanding when in fact she never asked for anything because you trained her to believe she deserved nothing. You used her own money to make yourself appear generous while making her appear greedy. This inheritance is not charity. It is justice. Furthermore, the attorney read, I have left detailed instructions for Aurelia to pursue criminal charges against you for embezzlement and fraud. Every transaction from her trust fund has been documented and reported to the appropriate authorities. You stole from a child for 16 years, Marcus. The fact that she was legally your daughter makes it worse, not better. Vivian looked confused, and Patricia appeared to be having trouble breathing, but Marcus looked like a cornered animal. You cannot prove anything, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Rosa stood up from her chair, her small frame radiating strength. Mr. Marcus, I clean your house for 15 years. I see the bank statements you leave on your desk. I see you practice forging Aurelia's grandmother's signature. Miss Eleanor, she asked me to take pictures. Rosa pulled out an envelope thick with photographs. I document everything because Miss Eleanor, she suspects something wrong when Aurelia never get college money like Vivian. The photographs showed Marcus at his home office practicing signature forgery bank statements showing transfers from the trust fund to his personal accounts, and even images of him celebrating major purchases with dates that corresponded to large withdrawals from my fund. Attorney Williams nodded approvingly. Mrs. Rosa has been working with investigators for the past 6 months at Eleanor's request. The evidence has already been submitted to both civil and criminal authorities. Marcus's lawyer whispered frantically in his ear before standing up. My client wishes to negotiate a settlement to avoid criminal prosecution. No, I said, finding my voice for the first time. Everyone turned to look at me. No settlements, no negotiations. You stole from me for 16 years while making me feel guilty for existing. You used my own money to turn family members against me. You lied about my real parents to make me believe I was fundamentally broken. There will be no settlement, Vivian finally spoke up. Wait, what does this mean for me? I did not know about any stealing. My college tuition, my wedding, my house down payment. Was that all from Aurelia's money? The attorney consulted his documents. According to these records, approximately $173,000 of your education, wedding, and housing expenses were funded directly from Aurelia's trust fund. Vivian turned to Marcus with horror. Dad, tell me this is not true. Tell me you did not steal from my sister to pay for my life. But Marcus could not meet her eyes. Patricia started crying, whether from guilt or the realization that their comfortable lifestyle was built on theft. I could not tell. Vivian, I said quietly, yesterday you told me I was not family and took my seat at grandmother's table. Today, you call me sister. Which is it? She had no answer. Attorney Williams cleared his throat. There is one more thing. Eleanor wanted me to read this final statement. Aurelia, you are about to learn who your real family is. It will not be the people who raised you, but it will be the people who choose to stand with you when the truth comes to light. Choose your family wisely, as I failed to do with my son. As we left the law office, Marcus was already on the phone with someone probably trying to hide assets before the criminal investigation moved forward. Patricia and Vivian sat in their car in the parking lot, both crying. Margaret walked beside me and Rosa patted my arm gently. What happens now? I asked. Now, Attorney Williams said, you decide how you want to rebuild your life with the truth finally out in the open. The next few weeks revealed the true character of every person in my extended family network. Word spread quickly about the inheritance and the criminal investigation, and the responses were more telling than I could have imagined. My cousin David, who had always been cool toward me at family gatherings, called within days of the will reading. Aurelia, I need to apologize. Uncle Marcus told us for years that you were jealous of Vivian and always asking for money. He said you felt entitled to things because you were adopted. I believed him, and I am ashamed. David's confession opened the floodgates. Aunt Helen called to admit that Marcus had borrowed money from her multiple times, claiming it was to help with my expenses and special needs as an adopted child. Cousin Jennifer revealed that Marcus had convinced her parents not to include me in family vacations because I was difficult and ungrateful. Uncle Robert apologized for years of cold shoulders, explaining that Marcus had told him I talked badly about the family behind their backs. Every revelation made the scope of Marcus's manipulation clearer. He had not just stolen my money. He had systematically isolated me from potential allies by poisoning every relationship before it could develop. But the most unexpected ally emerged from the investigation itself. Detective Sarah Martinez, the financial crimes investigator assigned to my case, called me personally after reviewing the evidence. Miss Morrison, I have been working financial crimes for 12 years, and this is one of the most comprehensive cases of ongoing fraud against a minor I have ever seen. Your father did not just steal money, he created an elaborate system of emotional and financial abuse designed to keep you dependent and compliant. Detective Martinez explained that my case had similarities to several other cases she was working. We have been tracking a pattern of adoptive parents who specifically seek out children with inheritance or benefit money, then systematically steal from them while using psychological manipulation to prevent the children from questioning their treatment. You mean this happens to other people? More than you would think. Your case is helping us build a larger investigation. Your grandmother's documentation and Rosa's photographs are some of the best evidence we have seen. Would you be willing to cooperate with a broader investigation? I agreed immediately. The idea that other children might be suffering what I had suffered made my personal pain feel like part of a larger purpose. Detective Martinez introduced me to two other victims, Rebecca, whose adoptive parents had stolen her deceased grandmother's life insurance money, and James, whose adoptive father had been forging his signature to access disability benefits. We formed an unlikely support group sharing strategies for dealing with family backlash and legal proceedings. But the strongest alliance came from an unexpected source. Rosa, the housekeeper who had documented my father's crimes, invited me to Sunday dinner at her house. "Mija, you need family now?" she said simply. "Miss Eleanor, she worry about you having nobody when the truth come out. She make me promise to take care of you." Rosa's family embraced me with a warmth I had never experienced. Her daughter Maria, a lawyer specializing in family court cases, offered to help me navigate the legal system pro bono. Her son Carlos, a financial advisor, helped me understand my inheritance and plan for my future. Her husband Miguel treated me like the daughter they had never had. "This is what family feels like," Maria explained during one of our Sunday dinners. "Family protects each other. Family lifts each other up. Family does not steal from children and then make them feel guilty for existing." The contrast with my adoptive family became more stark every day. Marcus hired an expensive defense attorney and began a campaign to discredit me publicly. He told anyone who would listen that I was an ungrateful child who had manipulated my elderly grandmother into changing her will. He claimed the trust fund money had been used for legitimate family expenses that benefited me too. Vivian's response was the most painful. Rather than acknowledge the harm that had been done, she chose to support Marcus. She posted on social media about family loyalty and standing by the people who raised you. She never mentioned that the life I had provided her was funded by money stolen from me. Patricia took a different approach. She called me crying, begging me to drop the charges and keep this within the family. When I refused, she accused me of being vindictive and wanting to destroy the family for revenge. "You got what you wanted, Aurelia. You got grandmother's money. Is not that enough? Why do you need to put your father in prison too?" I tried to explain that it was never about money, but about truth and justice. About the years of psychological abuse that had made me believe I deserved less than others. About the lies that had poisoned my relationships with extended family. About the other children who might be protected if Marcus faced consequences for his actions. But Patricia could not understand. In her mind, I was being cruel by refusing to let the family sweep this under the rug and move on. The stress of fighting my own family while building a legal case was enormous. Some days I wondered if it would be easier to take a settlement and disappear, start fresh somewhere else with my inheritance money. Then Rosa would remind me of my grandmother's words. "You are about to learn who your real family is." My real family was not the people who had raised me with lies and theft. My real family was the people choosing to stand with me as I fought for justice. Detective Martinez called with updates on the broader investigation. "We have arrested 2 other adoptive fathers in similar schemes, thanks partly to evidence from your case. One of them had been stealing from 3 different children over a 15-year period." Maria helped me understand that pursuing criminal charges was not about revenge, but about protecting future victims. "If there are no consequences for this behavior," it continues, Your courage to press charges might save another child from what you went through. Carlos helped me plan how to use my inheritance responsibly. Your grandmother wanted you to have financial security. The best way to honor her is to build a life where no one can manipulate or control you because of money. As winter turned to spring, the criminal case against Marcus moved forward. The evidence was overwhelming, and his expensive lawyer could not explain away 16 years of documented theft. But Marcus was not going down without a fight, and he had one more card to play that would test every alliance I had built. Just when I thought the case against Marcus was ironclad, the foundation of everything I had built began to crumble. It started with a phone call from Detective Martinez that changed everything. Aurelia, we have a problem. Someone has been feeding information about our investigation to your father's legal team. They know details about our evidence that were supposed to be confidential. My blood ran cold. The list of people with access to sensitive case information was small Detective Martinez attorney Williams Maria and the two other victims, Rebecca and James. The possibility that one of them was working against me felt like a knife twisting in my chest. How do you know there's a leak? I asked. Marcus's lawyer filed motions today that directly address weaknesses in our case that we had not made public. He knows about Rosa's photographs that we were planning to introduce as surprise evidence. He knows about the financial analysis we commissioned. Someone is definitely talking. The paranoia was immediate and consuming. Every conversation, every meeting, every strategy session was now suspect. Who could I trust? Who was playing both sides? The answer came sooner than I expected, and it devastated me more than I could have imagined. Rebecca, one of the other fraud victims that Detective Martinez had introduced me to, called me that evening with tears in her voice. Aurelia, I need to tell you something. I cannot live with this guilt anymore. My heart sank before she even continued. Marcus's lawyer approached me 3 weeks ago. He offered to help me settle my own case quickly and quietly if I provided information about your investigation. I was desperate, Aurelia. My case has been dragging on for 8 months and I am drowning in legal fees. I thought if I could just get my own situation resolved, I could help you better afterward. What did you tell them? I asked, though I already knew it was bad. Everything. Your legal strategy, the evidence you had gathered, the witnesses you were planning to call. I gave them copies of everything Maria shared with our support group. I thought it would just help my case, but then they started asking specifically about ways to discredit you, ways to make you look like the real manipulator. The betrayal cut deeper than anything Marcus had done. Rebecca had been someone I trusted with my deepest fears about the case. She had held me while I cried about losing my family. She had encouraged me to stay strong when I wanted to give up. And all the while, she had been selling my secrets to my abuser's legal team. There's more, Rebecca continued. They want me to testify that you coached me and James to exaggerate our stories. They want me to say that Detective Martinez is running some kind of vendetta against adoptive parents. They have offered to settle my case for $200,000 if I do it. Are you going to do it? I asked, already knowing the answer from her tone. I already signed the papers, Aurelia. I am so sorry. I was going to lose my apartment. I was about to have to drop my case entirely. I did not see another choice. After Rebecca hung up, I sat in my empty apartment, feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. Not only had she betrayed me, but her testimony could destroy the criminal case against Marcus. A co-victim claiming that I had manipulated the entire investigation would give Marcus's defense team exactly what they needed to create reasonable doubt. Maria called an emergency meeting the next day. This is bad, but it is not insurmountable. Rebecca's credibility is compromised because she is being paid for her testimony. Any decent prosecutor can expose that. But when we met with the district attorney's office, their confidence was shaken. Miss Morrison, we need to be honest with you. Your case just became much more difficult to prosecute. With Rebecca claiming you manipulated evidence and coached witnesses, the defense can argue that this entire investigation is based on your vindictive desire for revenge rather than actual crimes. Detective Martinez was furious. Rebecca is being paid to lie. That should disqualify her testimony entirely. It should, but juries sometimes struggle with complex financial crimes anyway. Add in a witness claiming the victim is actually the manipulator and we have a real problem. The prosecutor continued. We are still committed to pursuing this case, but I want you to understand that our chances of conviction have dropped significantly. Marcus's team is going to paint you as an ungrateful adopted daughter who manipulated your elderly grandmother and then manufactured evidence against your innocent father when you did not get everything you wanted. That night, I called Rosa in tears. Maybe I should just drop the whole thing, take the inheritance money and disappear. Start over somewhere else where no one knows this story. Mija, you listen to me, Rosa said firmly. Miss Eleanor did not gather all that evidence so you could run away when things got hard. She gathered that evidence because she know Marcus is a bad man who hurt you and who would hurt other children too. You think she wants you to quit when one scared girl makes bad choice? But what if we lose? What if Marcus gets away with everything and I look like the villain in all this? Then we lose fighting for truth instead of winning by staying silent. Miss Eleanor, she teach me that sometimes doing right thing is not easy thing, but it's still right thing. Rosa was correct, but knowing she was correct did not make the situation less terrifying. With Rebecca's betrayal, we were not just fighting Marcus anymore. We were fighting a narrative that painted me as the real abuser, the manipulative adopted child who had turned against her loving family. The betrayal had an unexpected consequence, though. James, the other victim in our support group, was so disgusted by Rebecca's actions that he doubled down on his commitment to my case. That was a coward's move, he told me. She threw you under the bus to save herself, but she does not realize that if Marcus gets away with what he did to you, none of us are safe. Our cases become harder to prove if the courts start believing that fraud victims are just vindictive liars. James's support meant everything, but I could not shake the feeling that the walls were closing in. Marcus's legal team was not just defending against criminal charges anymore. They were building a counter-narrative that made me the villain in my own story. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following month, and everything depended on whether our evidence would be strong enough to overcome Rebecca's paid testimony. If we lost at the preliminary hearing, the criminal charges would be dropped, and Marcus would walk away free while I would be branded as a liar, who had destroyed my own family with false accusations. As I prepared for what might be the most important court date of my life, I had no idea that someone was about to emerge from my past with evidence that would change everything once again. 3 days before the preliminary hearing, my life took another unexpected turn. I was reviewing case documents with Maria when my phone rang from an unknown number with a California area code. Is this Aurelia Morrison? A woman's voice asked. Yes, who is this? My name is Dr. Catherine Walsh. I was your biological grandmother's attorney and estate executor 24 years ago. I have been following your case in the news, and I believe I have information that could help you. My hands started trembling. My biological grandmother. But I thought she died when I was a baby. She did, but she left very specific instructions about what should happen if anyone ever tried to steal from your trust fund. Your adoptive father has been in violation of those instructions for over 16 years, and I have documentation that proves it. Dr. Walsh lived in San Francisco, but flew out the next day to meet with our legal team. What she brought with her was devastating to Marcus's defense case and vindicating beyond my wildest dreams. Your biological grandmother, Helen Westbrook, was an incredibly wealthy woman, Dr. Walsh explained. She owned 3 successful businesses and had significant investments. When your mother died, Helen knew that whoever adopted you might try to access your inheritance, so she built in multiple safeguards. Dr. Walsh spread documents across Maria's conference table. First, she required annual reports from your adoptive parents showing how the monthly disbursements were being used. Marcus has not filed a single report in 23 years. Second, she required that you be told about your inheritance when you turned 18. Marcus violated that requirement. Third, she specified that any guardian who stole from your fund would forfeit all rights to guardianship and face criminal prosecution. But most importantly, Dr. Walsh continued, she hired a private investigation firm to monitor your well-being throughout your childhood. I have reports dating back to when you were 8 years old, documenting concerns about your treatment compared to Vivian's. The private investigator's reports were like reading a detailed account of my own childhood from an outside observer's perspective. They documented the differences in how Marcus and Patricia treated me versus Vivian. They noted my exclusion from family photos, the disparity in clothing and educational opportunities, the emotional manipulation that made me believe I was lucky to be tolerated. The investigator also documented every time Marcus accessed your trust fund, Dr. Walsh said. We have photographs of him at the bank, copies of forged documents, recordings of phone calls where he lied to the bank about the purpose of withdrawals. Your biological grandmother knew exactly what was happening, and she was building a case against him. Maria's eyes were wide as she reviewed the evidence. This is incredible. Why did not this come out sooner? Helen's instructions were very specific. The evidence was only to be revealed if you ever tried to take legal action against your adoptive parents, or if they tried to prevent you from accessing your full inheritance at age 25. She wanted you to have the choice to pursue justice, but she did not want to traumatize you unnecessarily if you were happy and well cared for. How much money are we talking about? I asked, almost afraid to know. Dr. Walsh smiled grimly. Your biological grandmother's estate, including 24 years of careful investments, is now worth approximately $1.8 million. Marcus has stolen roughly 15% of an inheritance that was always meant to be yours. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Marcus had not just stolen from a trust fund. He had stolen from a multi-million-dollar inheritance while making me believe I should be grateful for basic necessities. But Dr. Walsh was not finished. There is something else. Your biological grandmother suspected that if Marcus was willing to steal from you, he was probably stealing from others as well. She funded a private investigation into his financial activities that has been ongoing for over 15 years. She pulled out another thick folder. Marcus has been running financial scams on multiple families. He specifically targets wealthy elderly people and convinces them to name him as executor of their estates, then manipulates their wills to benefit himself and Vivian. Your great-aunt Eleanor was not his first victim. She was his fifth. Detective Martinez leaned forward. Do you have evidence of these other cases? Detailed evidence. Bank records, forged documents, recorded conversations. Marcus has stolen over $400,000 from elderly relatives and family friends over the past 12 years. He used your trust fund money to establish his credibility as a successful financial advisor, then leveraged that fake reputation to gain access to other people's money. The scope of Marcus's criminality was staggering. He was not just a father who had made bad choices with his adopted daughter's money. He was a career criminal who had been using me as his cover story for over a decade. Maria immediately called the prosecutor's office. We need an emergency meeting. We have new evidence that completely changes this case. The next day, the prosecutor's entire demeanor had changed. Miss Morrison, with Dr. Walsh's evidence, we are not just looking at embezzlement anymore. We are looking at wire fraud, elder abuse, identity theft, and racketeering charges. This has become a major federal case. What does that mean for Rebecca's testimony? I asked. Rebecca's testimony becomes irrelevant. With this level of documented evidence spanning multiple victims and multiple decades, her claim that you manufactured everything falls apart. No one could have manufactured evidence that exists in private investigator files from when you were 8 years old. Dr. Walsh had more surprises. There is also the matter of your biological father's military benefits. Marcus has been collecting and keeping those benefits illegally since you turned 18. The military has been notified, and they want their money back with interest and penalties. As we prepared for the preliminary hearing with our new evidence, I found myself thinking about my biological grandmother, a woman I had never met, but who had spent decades protecting me from dangers I did not even know existed. Why did she do all this? I asked Dr. Walsh. Because she loved you, and because she knew what kind of man your adoptive father was from the beginning. She had hoped that the monthly trust fund payments would be enough to ensure you were well cared for. But when her private investigator reported ongoing emotional abuse and financial manipulation, she decided to build a case that would protect you and bring him to justice when the time was right. She spent over $200,000 on private investigators and legal fees to protect a granddaughter she barely knew. That is love, Aurelia. The preliminary hearing was no longer a question of whether we had enough evidence to proceed. It was a matter of how many charges Marcus would face and whether he would have any defense at all against the mountain of evidence that was about to bury him. The preliminary hearing lasted 3 days, and Marcus's expensive legal team crumbled under the weight of evidence they never saw coming. Dr. Walsh's documentation was devastating, but watching Marcus's face as 24 years of crimes were laid out in detail was the most satisfying moment of my life. His lawyer tried desperately to discredit the evidence. Your Honor, this investigation was conducted without Mr. Morrison's knowledge or consent. It violates his privacy rights. Judge Harrison was not sympathetic. Mr. Morrison forfeited his privacy rights when he began systematically defrauding multiple victims over a period of 16 years. The evidence is overwhelming and admissible. Rebecca's paid testimony fell apart under cross-examination. When the prosecutor asked her about the $200,000 settlement she had received for her statement, her credibility evaporated. The judge actually admonished Marcus's lawyer for bringing a paid witness into his courtroom. Your Honor, the prosecutor said, we are requesting that all charges be elevated to federal court due to the scope and interstate nature of these crimes. Mr. Morrison used wire transfers and falsified federal documents to steal from multiple victims across state lines. Marcus was arrested in the courtroom. As the bailiff led him away in handcuffs, he looked at me with pure hatred and said, "You destroyed this family for money, you ungrateful little bitch." Judge Harrison called him back. Mr. Morrison, that outburst just demonstrated exactly the kind of character that makes these charges believable. You have shown no remorse for stealing from a child you were supposed to protect, and your behavior in my courtroom suggests you see yourself as the victim here. I am recommending maximum sentencing when this case reaches federal court. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. Detective Martinez had tipped them off about the scope of the case, and my story had become a symbol of adoptive care fraud that was apparently more common than anyone realized. Miss Morrison, how does it feel to finally have justice? A reporter asked. I thought about my answer carefully. Justice feels like knowing that other children will be protected from what I went through. My adoptive father did not just steal money from me. He stole my sense of self-worth and my ability to trust family relationships. But he also taught me how to recognize real family when I find it. I looked at the group of people who had stood by me, Rosa and her family, Maria Detective Martinez, Dr. Walsh James, and even Aunt Margaret, who had flown in to attend the hearing and publicly denounce her brother's actions. The criminal trial took 8 more months, but the outcome was never in doubt. Marcus was convicted on 14 federal charges and sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. He was also ordered to pay full restitution to all his victims, including returning every penny he had stolen from my trust fund with interest and penalties. Vivian never spoke to me again. She moved across the country with her family rather than face the shame of living in a community where everyone knew her privileged life had been funded by stolen money. Patricia filed for divorce and changed her last name back to her maiden name. She sent me one letter apologizing for her role in the abuse, but I was not ready to forgive her yet. Maybe someday. The most unexpected outcome was discovering my extended biological family. Dr. Walsh connected me with my biological father's military unit, and I learned that he had been posthumously awarded a Bronze Star for his service in Afghanistan. His former commander, now retired, reached out to me personally. "Your father was a good man, Aurelia. He talked about you constantly and worried about providing for you if something happened to him. He would be proud of how you fought for justice." Through the military connections, I found my biological father's sister, Aunt Grace, who lived in Colorado with her family. She had been searching for me since I turned 18, but had no way to track me through the adoption system. "We never stopped thinking about you," she told me during our first phone call. "Your father made us promise to find you someday and tell you that you were loved and wanted, even though he could not be there to raise you." I spent Christmas with Aunt Grace's family, and for the first time in my life, I understood what it felt like to be genuinely welcomed. No one questioned my right to be there or made me feel like an outsider looking in. But my chosen family remained the strongest support system I had. Rosa's Sunday dinners became a tradition. Maria became not just my lawyer, but one of my closest friends. Detective Martinez and I stayed in touch, and she even asked me to speak to other fraud victims about the importance of pursuing justice. I used part of my inheritance to establish a foundation that provides legal support to children who suspect they are being financially abused by their guardians. The Helen Westbrook Foundation, named after my biological grandmother, has already helped 12 families expose guardian fraud and recover stolen assets. The money Marcus stole from me was recovered with interest, but the emotional healing took much longer. Therapy helped me understand that the abuse was never about me being unworthy or ungrateful. It was about Marcus being a criminal who used psychological manipulation to cover his crimes. 3 years later, I can honestly say that losing my adoptive family was the best thing that ever happened to me. When Marcus told me I was not family, he accidentally set me free to find people who would love and support me authentically. Real family does not steal from you and then make you feel guilty for existing. Real family does not use your own money to turn others against you. Real family stands with you when you fight for justice, even when it is hard. If you have ever felt like an outsider in your own family, if you have ever been told you should be grateful for basic human decency, if you have ever suspected that the people who are supposed to protect you might actually be harming you, please know that you deserve better. You deserve real family, whether that is blood family who treats you right or chosen family who sees your worth. Family karma is real, and justice does come sometimes in ways you never expected. My sister told me I was not family and took my seat at the table, but she accidentally revealed that I never needed that table anyway. I built my own table surrounded by people who actually wanted me there. Have you ever experienced family betrayal that led you to question everything you believed about blood loyalty? Have you ever discovered that your chosen family was more supportive than your biological or adoptive family? Share your story in the comments below, because these experiences need to be heard and validated. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family trauma and finding justice. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that they deserve better treatment from the people who claim to love them. Thank you for listening to my story and for supporting others who are brave enough to fight for truth and justice. Remember that sometimes losing your family is actually finding yourself, and chosen family can be stronger than blood family when it is built on genuine love and respect instead of obligation and manipulation.